This webinar will be recorded and circulated to all registrants. You can always visit us on our YouTube channel for all of our content on demand. Today's topic is, I hate my IT provider and what to do about it. We are joined today by my colleague, Michael Kingsley. Michael is our VCIO director. He leads our team of technical experts that help our clients with strategic advice. And he's been doing this a long time, and he's got some great information to share with everybody on today's webinar. Michael, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, super. All right, well, greetings to everybody. Let's get into it. One thing we always do just in a minute or two at the beginning of all of our webinars is we share a little bit about who we are. We have clients on these webinars. We also have people who may not know us very well. So Snaptech IT, we are a cybersecurity first IT service provider with operations in Atlanta, Georgia, Phoenix, Arizona, and the San Francisco Bay Area. When clients come to us, they come to us with their technology challenges. You know, sometimes they literally have software and hardware and technology that's not performing well. Sometimes they have struggles with their current provider, maybe where they're not getting the service they deserve, or maybe they're losing sleep over their cybersecurity posture. Our philosophy is technology should be solving problems for your business, not creating them. And so what we do with folks who are in those situations is we implement our proven process. And all of our clients end up with a technology plan, a predictable IT budget. We implement our best practices. We secure their environment. And things will break. It is technology. Stuff will break. And when things break, you need fast and friendly IT support, which we do every day with our whole team. And what our clients ultimately get is they're able to focus on their business and being very productive, and also having the peace of mind that they have a partner that's helping them with their cybersecurity every day. We support clients in two different ways. If you're a smaller team and you don't have anybody on staff who does IT for you, we do, for those clients, we do what we call fully managed IT, and we look after everything. For larger organizations, you may have an IT manager, an IT director, or even a whole IT team. For those sorts of clients, we put together a custom IT outsourcing strategy for their organization, and we do what we call co-managed IT. And then, you know, most of our clients will get started with us by doing one of two things. Almost with every client, we'll start out with a cybersecurity risk assessment on your environment, because it really helps to have a third-party point of view to understand where your organization might have gaps or compliance challenges in your current environment. And also, many clients today are really struggling with how to drive value and organize their whole AI efforts. There's a ton of experimenting going on. Every business leader is banging on all the tools and probably has a couple different paid subscriptions, but it's really hard to get your whole organization heading in the right direction with AI, and we are helping our clients with those challenges as well. Okay. Well, so today, what are we going to be talking about? So this is a high-level overview of our agenda. And I think, you know, when we were debating the title of this webinar, we made it maybe a little too on the nose. Most people probably don't hate their current provider, but there's, I think every organization probably has business relationships or vendor relationships where you want them to be better, where you're not maybe getting the service you feel like you deserve, and maybe you don't really have a spirit of partnership with that organization that's serving you, and you want to make it better. So today, we're really going to focus the conversation not on how to go shop for a new provider. We're going to spend a little bit of time on that. What we're going to spend most of our time on today is, if you have an IT outsourcing relationship today and it's not firing on all cylinders, if the level of partnership just really isn't there, what do you do about it? I think people often kind of in a knee-jerk fashion think, oh, well, if my vendor's not doing a great job, it's all their fault. And I think the reality is partnership is a two-way street, and there's a lot of things that you as the client can do to really take control of the success and make sure it happens. And so the bulk of today's conversation is really going to be how to make it better. How to make it better in your existing relationships, how to turn it into a partnership, how to make it so you can make it so that you don't have to fire them as a provider. But ultimately, if things don't work out and you feel like you need to head in a different direction, we also have a ton of experience helping organizations shop for the right provider and find the new partner that they're looking for. And there's a lot of mistakes that get made in that process. And what we're going to try to do is give some tips and pointers on how to do it right, and how to get the best outcome for your organization. So we're going to roughly touch on like 10 topics, and then we welcome your questions as we go along, and we'll try to address them on the fly. But really, the focus of today is what can you do as an organization or as a business leader to have the absolute best partnership with your outsourced IT provider, and what can you control, and how can you invest in that relationship to make it better. Okay, so the very first one is the way we're gonna kind of organize today's conversation is we're gonna kind of talk about the struggles we see first, and then we're going to talk about what you can do to alleviate those struggles. Like, what's the solution to the challenge? And the first one, I think, that we see quite often is, organizations that don't actually understand what service they're getting. Like, there's either confusion, or there's a lack of transparency, and another thing that often happens, I mean, how do organizations end up in this situation? Well, the most common scenario we see probably is 3 years ago, somebody hired, it could be us too, right? I mean, it could be, in many cases, we're speaking from, not from many cases, it's almost from all these experiences, we're speaking from personal experiences, right? So when Michael's talking about things, he's talking about, hey, how have we run into challenges with our own clients, and how do we make it better? How did we improve it? How do we raise the bar? How do we hold each other accountable? But a very common scenario with transparency and clients being confused is, this happens all the time. 3 years ago, somebody hired us. A year and a half in, that person leaves the organization. Somebody else gets handed, hey, you're now in charge of our IT outsourcing relationship. And this person's like, wait a minute, I'm in charge of HR. Why? Well, because we have to cycle through a lot of technology because we hire and fire people a lot, and that's just a big part of it. So you're in HR, you're now in charge of IT, and that person steps into the situation, and there's often a lot of confusion, and we see this all the time. So Michael, I mean, maybe could you comment on some of the struggles you might see clients experience in this sort of area?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. A lot of times what we're seeing is, and it's kind of twofold, as what Ted was talking about. That's where you have like an actual existing contract with the organization, and you actually are not fully understanding all the services that are being provided. A lot of times when we come in to do assessments with clients, we'll have discussions around what services they're actually having through the managed service provider. And it's really shocking sometimes how they don't really understand what they're directly paying for and what is actually going through the MSP. So it's very important to fully understand what licenses are tied to the managed service provider. That gives you a picture of exactly what you're paying for, ensuring that you're being delivered those services is one. But then secondly, understanding what is exposed if you were to decide to terminate that contract with the other provider. We recently also had a situation where a customer had a auto-renew clause within their contract. We came in, did an assessment for them. They were ready to move forward with services, and they found out that they had recently been auto-renewed into another 3-year contract with their current provider. The challenges that come in with that are, a lot of times you have cancellation clauses where you have to pay a certain amount of the contract if you were to cancel. And so that lack of transparency has really led to a lot of challenges with them exiting that relationship with their customer. So a lot of times we see issues where if you're not really fully understanding what you're paying for and what expectations are being set based on your contract, that it can lead to not only issues with your current engagement, but also issues if you do decide that changing providers is the most important thing.
Yeah, and so the key here is, if you're in a role maybe where you inherit the management of your IT outsourcing relationship, or you get promoted and now all of a sudden it's in your chain of command, it's super, super valuable to review your agreement in detail. Just get back to the paper and review it line by line, and really insist upon clarity. I mean, it's totally acceptable to sit down with your provider and go, hey, I run HR, I'm now in charge of IT, this is Greek to me, explain it, and let's go through it together, and so that I understand everything that's in this agreement, everything that's on my invoice, and explain it to me in layman's terms. You know, take the techno babble out of it and make sure I understand it. And then, you know, over time, things can get more complicated too. So things change. Some organizations are growing like a weed, and they're adding people, and things are becoming more complex, or they might acquire other companies. And so the important thing is to lean in and insist upon regular and predictable reporting from your provider. And if you're not getting it, make sure it happens. I mean, basically insist that it gets done, because with a lot of things in IT and cybersecurity, reporting is a big part of the value you're getting, because it gives you that visibility to actually do the risk management work you need to do. And if you're not getting it, that's a huge problem. And we see that all the time, that a provider will have tools, security defenses running, but the client has like no visibility to the reporting. They have no visibility to the incident reports. They have no knowledge of what's happening. And that's just not a good place to be in. So you really want to insist upon transparency and get everything in writing. Michael, any other comments on transparency?
The only one I would give is just kind of a little pro tip. What I often tell clients is when you sign a contract for something, if you have a term for that contract, just set a reminder on your calendar, maybe a week before that term expires, just to remind yourself to reevaluate that contract when that time comes up.
Exactly. Okay, so moving on, partnership. I think the important thing to think about is IT outsourcing. It's probably one of the more high trust vendor relationships you're going to have, because what's an IT outsourcing partner do for you? Well, they have, you know, they're basically managing some of the most secure and sensitive systems in your business, the things that control your data, that keep your data secure, that keep your data private. There has to be a high level of trust. And in our view, it really people should think about these business relationships as a partnership. It's if you feel like it's just a transactional support relationship, you're not going to maximize your value. And so, Michael, I mean, like, maybe talk about, I mean, have you thought of a time where, you know, somebody wasn't thinking about things in the spirit of partnership, and what are the drawbacks of that approach?
Yeah, so one of the things that my team heavily oversees for our organization is the strategic alignment with our customers. So thinking through the different items that customer might be headed towards in their vertical, and kind of what technology would allow them to best leverage themselves in that market. I realize I'm kind of going a little bit ahead because it's a point in a future point, but what I'm trying to get at with the partnership portion is, a lot of times we'll see in customer accounts where they're a little bit more reserved when it comes to giving information out about the way that their business operates. There are certain things around the key activities, the way that the revenue is generated, the inefficiencies that are built into HR practices and various other marketing things that can be gleaned from having that partnership with the organization, and really understanding how you guys operate as a business. The clients that we've seen a lot of success with are the clients that are a little bit more prone to being open about the way that they operate as a business. It gives us the insight to be able to really dive into those organizations and understand the way that they're strategizing and the way that they're trying to leverage their place in their market to continue to grow and to expand. So partnerships of very big importance to us, and it's something that we really value, and you're going to get the most out of your IT provider if you truly see them as a partner and less as a vendor. We all know of the mind-bending meetings that you'll be in, where all you talk about is how many tickets do we close. We really try to take a partnership approach, and I really think that you need to be pushing your provider to do so as well, because it'll really leverage their expertise coupled with what your strategy is for your business and those two put together can really put rocket fuel on your growth.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the economy today, with the growth in AI, I mean, there's no evidence that technology is going to be less relevant in the next 10 years for business
Yes.
growth. And so technology is a opportunity to be a significant differentiator for your business, and you need your IT partner to be close to the business challenges and the business growth strategies you're trying to drive. So um, don't make it a transactional relationship. Share the challenges that your business is having, because technology can probably solve many of them, and there may be clever workflow solutions or technologies that we can bring to the table that can help you solve those particular business challenges, but we can't unless you share them with us. We also want to understand, how are you trying to grow? What is your annual plan? Are you looking to add 20 people in the next year? Well, if you are, we need to know about it, because we're going to be helping you procure equipment to keep those people productive and make sure they have a great onboarding experience. So sharing all of that information about your growth and your struggles is super valuable, because technology can be a part of solving a lot of the challenges that most businesses face today. And in a true partnership, there should be a lot of education that's going both ways. We expect our best clients to educate us about the nuances of their business, because you're the experts in your business. If you're in the mortgage business, or you're in the satellite manufacturing business, you got to educate us, because we're not experts in those areas, but we want to understand the details, because technology can probably help. But we're also going to bring a lot of education to the table as well, in the form of ongoing programming, webinars, workshops, seminars, having our experts come out and see you and spend time and talk about some of these newer technologies. So we invest a lot of time in education, because there are things that we go super deep on that we know that we can really help you and your team understand better.
That's correct.
All right, so strategy. There's an. I'll just throw this one out there. I'll just be maybe a little controversial. There's something in the IT services arena called a quarterly business review, and that one of the running gags in our industry is that it's maybe we shouldn't call them QBRs, because they don't happen quarterly. And it might be surprising to hear, but it's sometimes kind of hard for IT providers to make sure that all of their clients are meeting on a regular cadence at the agreed upon times. Sometimes it's a struggle. That is just the way it goes. Like, people get super busy, and they maybe view an opportunity to catch up on the strategy and the partnership as not a high value task, but that's really a missed opportunity. And so the kind of third major piece of advice is, make sure you're carving out the time for those strategic engagements where you can sit down and talk about the IT strategy, and talk about, are you aligned? Is it aligned with your growth strategy or your economic realities? So any additional advice, Michael, you'd give to provide, to clients on how to stay in sync, I guess, if you will, with their provider?
Yeah, I kind of stole a little bit of my thunder in the previous point, but we coin our meetings as strategic technical alignment reviews. So instead of that QBR approach like Ted was talking about, we feel like that's kind of an older and antiquated way of approaching things, because it's oftentimes looking back at the past. What have we done for you? How did we accomplish what we were set out to do? And those things are good, and we still do touch on those points in our meetings to make sure we have good alignment. But I will say that the strategy sessions with us are a little bit different. We want to dive into what your business goals are, what your business objectives are, and really understanding that allows us to guide the direction of where we take your technology stack. So a good example that comes to mind, we have a client that is in the construction industry. About 1.5 to 2 years ago, the CEO and owner of the organization decided to make a really big push to acquiring other vendors, subcontractors that are within the construction industry, and almost in a sense have a conglomerate of plumbing, electrical, drywall, various other factors that go into the construction industry. They started with a single company, and so that wasn't a big deal. We were able to bring it up in our strategy session, and our resource there was able to give us the information. About 2 weeks into integrating that company, they then bought another company, and the IT team internally was already having their head spin, but we were able to discuss it with their team and put together a plan on how to assess those environments and how to build a strategy around integrating those organizations together. Over the course of that 6-month period, we had about 4 other acquisitions. So this company made about 5 to 6 acquisitions during that 6-month stretch. But because of the strategic forethought that we had with our customer in that situation, we were able to have a clear and concise plan on how to best integrate those organizations together from a technology perspective, and the integration of those organizations went a lot smoother because of that. So that's just an example of how strategic conversations, even when it's something that's like that you might not naturally think I need to involve my IT provider in those discussions, just giving some insight into what's coming up to your VCIO or whoever's doing your strategy sessions with your MSP can go a long way in them being prepared to best support you and to make any technology transitions as smooth as humanly possible.
Right. So it's so important. So these meetings, they're about you ultimately in your business. And so bring your own agenda, bring your own burning questions, bring the strategic game plan that you may or may not have thought originally, like your IT team needs to hear about, but be very thoughtful in those regards. And then the other thing is also just remember to carve out some time to build relationships. You know, sitting down and rolling up your sleeves to talk about your business strategy and where you're going, that requires trust, but you got to keep investing to fortify that trust, if you will. And so a lot of it's just like, hey, let's have this meeting together. Let's do it in person. Let's maybe go to lunch afterwards and break bread and get to know each other on a human level. And I think if you're doing all those things, you will foster that spirit of partnership, which leads to some of the success stories that Michael just shared.
That's correct.
So I think the other thing that sometimes people underestimate is the value of budgeting and having a plan. I think budgeting is one of those areas where people kind of like perfection is the enemy of the good. You know, sometimes people get frustrated, like, you know, like, do we actually even know how many computers we're going to have in 18 months? Well, no, but we can make some very educated guesses, and we have a lot of software tools to help us organize a game plan and project out what resources we might need in the future. So we're big believers. A big part of having a strategic conversation, in our view, is having a IT roadmap and an IT budget that is it's a living document. First of all, it's not static. It's going to incorporate the latest information we've learned from the client, and we're going to go through it together and make adjustments where necessary. I mean, it could be that things are leaner in the next 6 months, or it could be, hey, we're going to go acquire 5 companies in 6 months. That means there better be budget to pay for the projects that it's going to take to integrate those organizations into your game plan. And so, Michael, you want to comment on kind of how you guys think about budgeting when you work with clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that is always top of mind for us is lifecycle management. So that is one of the main key cogs around the road mapping in particular. We don't like there to be very many, if any, surprises to our customers. So as we mentioned in the first step in talking about transparency, we try to be as transparent with our customers, not only about what they're being charged currently, but what we anticipate being costs in the future. So a lot of times you'll see on IT roadmaps things like lifecycle management. Hey, we're going to replace our machines on a 5-year life cycle. So we manage that, and we're building those different recommendations out. From a budgeting standpoint, we also don't want you to be surprised by initiatives that we're going to recommend. It could be from a security vulnerability that's recently come out in the market that we need to protect against. It could be that you're trying to grow your accounting team and you're needing to buy a bank of additional machines in Q3. Having those things planned out and on the budget and on the roadmap allows you to plan ahead. And so you're not always trying to react to additional costs that you might not have planned for. We review the budgets with our customers, also from a perspective of looking over the bill, as we mentioned in the first step, of looking at the things that you're paying for, so that if there is something that you have a question about, you can voice that at that time. But at the end of the day, it all boils down to ensuring that you don't have any surprises, if at all possible, and ensuring that we're maintaining the environment to where you do not build a technology debt that causes you to have to overcome that in future quarters.
Yeah, and the payoff, I mean, of course, it's obvious to say that nobody likes surprises, right? But if you ever look at what, Michael just used the term technical debt. In our space, we throw that term around a lot. What does it mean, in fact? I mean, the reality is technical debt is when you make a decision not to invest or not to maintain systems or not to invest in the preventative maintenance that's gonna keep your systems healthy. And the subtext on the message here is that you always will have to pay the piper. You either pay for it today or you pay down the road. Because if you defer maintenance, if you don't upgrade machines on a normal life cycle, if you try to cut corners, that just creates debt that you have to pay down the road. It's like you're never going to completely avoid those costs. You're probably going to compound your costs, because what ends up happening is if you're not running a healthy IT environment for various reasons, then you're going to actually degrade performance, and your employees are going to have a less they're not going to have a great IT experience in their work, and it's going to hurt their productivity, and that's going to hurt your ability to serve your clients. And so we never want clients to have surprises, but we also don't ever want a situation where you're generating technical debt and you have to end up catching up and paying for everything and have to write big checks because you put them off in the past. It's much better to have a plan and to get after those realities of investment over a reasonable amount of time, rather than just kicking the can down the road and then trying to deal with it in the future. So.
Correct. Yep, and the roadmap helps with that, because it allows you to actually space out those costs over time, and then, like Ted said, it doesn't hit you with some unexpected major check you have to write.
Yeah, and the other thing is that this is a very dynamic process with our clients. We're making decisions. Like there could be financial realities where budgets are tighter in certain periods, but if we're making adjustments to the plan, we're doing it with a kind of an eyes wide open type perspective, where we're gonna really think about, okay, well, all right, when are budgets going to be better, or when can we prioritize that particular project or that particular investment, because it has become the number one priority. And so if you have a whole planning process around it, it avoids making really bad decisions and kicking the can down the road, and you just stay on top of things much better.
Yep.
All right, so AI innovation. I think the challenge we see, we talk to a lot of clients, and they come to us and they say, well, yeah, I mean, AI, we're super excited, but our MSP is not telling us anything about AI. Or we ask them and they don't seem to have any of the answers. And so I think in general, the challenge we see is you have to, whoever is your technology partner, you have to insist that they are out on the cutting edge and they are helping you transform and evolve your own thinking and your own capabilities around new technologies. And today, there's no question, the biggest new technology wave that's washing over the entire business world is AI. And so you really need to insist that your provider is educating you and is developing solutions and is understanding the cybersecurity risks that might come with AI, or the data privacy risks. So, I mean, Michael, maybe tell us a little bit about how we're trying to address that with our clients via our STAR meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last point that Ted made about the cybersecurity impacts of AI seems to be the one glaring blind spot for a lot of organizations, especially in the small to medium sized business market. A lot of companies have either dove both feet in with AI. They've been buying their own AI engines and they've been utilizing them. Or you also have the other side that's a little bit more reserved and is almost thinking that they want to hold off until version 5.0. One of the things that we focus on is, as Ted mentioned earlier on in the presentation, is we have a AI Jumpstart program that we push our clients and our prospects to really consider doing. Basically, what it is it familiarizes yourself with AI, some of the terms that get used in the industry, some of the ways that you can utilize it, but it also is looking at your environment from a security perspective to ensure that some of the AI that you are wanting to implement in the environment is in a controlled fashion. So one of the things that we do in our STAR meetings is we have a section in each STAR meeting where we go over AI innovation, things that we've seen in the same industry as the organization that we're having the STAR meeting in. We are obviously have a vast number of clients across a vast number of industries, so we oftentimes will see certain things that will be being built out in those industries, along with some of the research that our team is doing. And so we're always wanting to bring up ideas and get thoughts from our clients on kind of where their head is around AI, what are some ideas that we've had or that we've seen in their industry, and then really brainstorm towards what we can actually implement into the environment. The other thing that we're working on, like I mentioned around the security, we are working on a few tools that we have identified as some security tools that we can utilize around AI, and that's primarily in the spirit of trying to ensure that data leaks are not happening and that AI is not allowing your personal data to get out. So we have some methods on how to handle that. If your current MSP is not talking to you about AI, though, that's something that you really need to be pressing for them to look into. And if they can't provide you the insights, I'll say that the AI train is going to continue to move forward. And I think anybody that is not innovating in this space is going to get left behind. And so you don't want to allow your provider to pull you down if they're not discussing these items with you. Please insist that they do moving forward.
Yeah, and I think and look at how they kind of approach the problem. So, I mean, as Michael said, it starts with discussions around, what are the workflows or unique business challenges per industry and for the particular company. But there's also a lot of security and privacy implications. And so it's not just about buying a tool and implementing it. There are a lot of great tools. There's no question, and it's quite an exciting time. And I think one thing that we see business owners get carried away with is they think AI, it's all about growth and productivity. It's like, hey, we're going to be able to grow faster with less headcount, or we're going to even be able to shrink certain departments because we can automate some of their work. And so everybody's thinking along those lines, and it's very much offense, offense, offense. And we're just here to say, we get it. We have the same level of excitement as you do. On the other hand, you've got to consider all of the security implications, the data privacy implications, and how integrating AI into an organization, it's tricky. It's tricky to do right, to pick the right tools, to pick the right standards, to make sure people are well trained, they're properly enabled, so that it's actually creating efficiency in your business. It's easier said than done. And we're working with a lot of clients to really perfect that process. But it's not just about buying the coolest new shiny tool that's in the news, on the AI front. It's really an art form of integrating these things into your business to make yourself better, more productive, more efficient, better able to serve your clients.
Yeah, just adding one more thing before we flip, Ted. I want to just call out, look, if you'll notice, these are building blocks. Partnership challenges, which is what we mentioned earlier. So I mentioned being mindful of expressing your concerns, expressing how your business does business so that the MSP can fully understand how you do business. Then you've got strategic conversations. So discussing those things, having those things on the roadmap, and then that leads into AI innovation. So if you're expressing those frustrations to your MSP and they are actually thinking of things through an AI innovation lens, you expressing that information provides them a wealth of knowledge on things that they might be able to innovate around AI that could give you a good return on investment for those items. So just know that notice that all of these things are stacking up one on top of the other, and they all lead to a more successful relationship, especially around this particular AI one, because the more that they know, the more that they might even innovate in ways that you don't even think of internally, because they understand your business and how it operates better.
Right on, right on. So great segue, Michael. So it's really about thinking in terms of layers here.
That's correct.
And what we've done in today's discussion is we've gone through the 7 big ideas that we brought to the table in terms of how to manage your partnership the best, how to behave in that partnership, and the next one is the last kind of 2 before we kind of change gears is kind of just risk management. So this is an area, like, I think sometimes people underestimate how much ongoing cybersecurity investments required. But just I think the key thing here is that there are cybersecurity requires constant attention, constant focus on risk management and investment. And if you're not, it kind of goes back to that conversation we were having around technical debt. You can really paint yourself into a corner if you're not paying close attention to the risk management conversation all the time. So maybe Michael, comment on how we try to do that in our STAR meetings.
Yeah, so when we have our STAR meetings with our customers, we do a assessment overview. So we perform a NIST CSF 2.0 assessment. I know that's just an acronym. It's basically a compliance regulation, and it's a set of controls that are in these categories that you'll see in this screenshot for identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And so we assess our clients when we first bring them on as a customer as an initial assessment, and then every time that we have those STAR meetings lined up with those customers, we do a reassessment on things that have changed in the environment. That gives us the ability to show a comparison against where they started and where they're going moving forward. And then we also like to tie a lot of our recommendations to some of the risk vulnerabilities that we find in the organization. It could be there's not an incident response plan that's set for that organization. So if they were to have a major incident like a ransomware attack or something along those lines, they don't really have a set policy on how to respond, which could lead to more downtime for them. Or it could be this is a company that has a lot of compliance regulations and they need somebody being mindfully reviewing the environment. Just to kind of give you an example, we have a company that's in the manufacturing space. They do a lot of DoD contracts, or I guess maybe it's changed to DOW now, I don't know, but DoD contracts. And so they're in the defense manufacturing industry. I don't know if you guys will know anything about that, but there is a regulation called CMMC that the DoD contractors have to meet the compliance regulations for to win certain contracts that have sensitive information they call CUI. This company was not technically certified and was not to the compliance that they needed to be at when we were brought in. We were able to assess them, come up with a remediation plan that would get them to their compliance regulations. They were assessed about 6-8 months ago by a small little company called Honeywell, and they were actually mentioned by the Honeywell staff as having an environment that was more secure than even the Honeywell environment was itself. They then were able to land a 4X contract or 4X on their contract with Honeywell. And so now they are the preferred vendor for the items that they're building for Honeywell, and it's led to millions and millions of dollars in additional revenue for their organization. So that's just an example of somebody being intentional at their organization about how they were going to meet the objectives of their technology and the security that's required in order to gain these bigger contracts, and really buying into the strategic vision of what we were able to lay out for them. Really led to additional revenue and a big ROI for their organization.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two big things I just want to kind of touch on that story and just double click on a little bit. Is that number one, cybersecurity, no matter what size you are, it's a living, breathing thing. Like, it needs constant attention. The external risk environment's evolving. You may be in an industry where the bar is being raised or new regulations are coming out. You might have strategic clients and customers that are raising the bar on you that you need to pay attention to. So it's an ever changing situation, and that's why you need this strategic focused interactions with your partner, with your IT partner, to keep a pulse on this and to keep moving ahead. And then the other thing is to look at risk management and cybersecurity as real investments that are going to yield you a high return. In the story that Michael just shared, this client is thriving and winning more than their fair share of business from some of the largest defense contractors in the world, because they made the wise decision a couple of years ago to really focus on their compliance situation and work with us as their cybersecurity partner to get there.
Yep. I'll go a little bit further on one more point. Your vendors as well, especially your MSP. You should be asking them what kind of compliance regulations that they have in their organization. They should be doing compliance on themselves, because that could be a risk point if they're not maintaining some sort of compliance regulation in their organization. So don't be afraid to ask them what kind of compliance that they are under, and provide evidence that they're meeting those obligations as well.
Fantastic. So this is kind of the last one on how to, manage your partnership. And we just call this one professional reciprocity. We treat other people like they're your partners and treat them professionally. This may kind of like go without saying, or the reality is sometimes people can get under a lot of stress in business if if stuff's not working well. If your IT is not working, if you're losing sleep about your cybersecurity posture, if your people aren't productive because you deferred investments in your IT, it can get stressful because stuff's not going to work as well as it should. The reality is remember, we're human beings over here at SnapTech. If you're not working with us, you probably have a provider. Treat them as human beings. Treat them as professionals. It goes a real long way. Everybody expects to be treated professionally, and so keep that in mind, even if things have gotten to a stress level where there's urgent problems. But I don't know, Michael, any other thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I would just say being open and honest as well. I know that that's kind of been a theme that we've mentioned. The provider needs to know the feedback from how you're feeling about the organization, or how about the relationship. And so in a professional manner, like you mentioned, don't be afraid to share, even if you have constructive criticism, but do it in a professional way if at all possible. And also expect that from them as well. So if they're not giving you that, then you need to have a discussion with them about how you're feeling, that you're not getting a professional response back, and ensure that they're giving that back to you as well.
Yeah. And really that the whole accountability piece is kind of a two-way street. I mean, the way you build up a partnership is to be accountable to each other. So coming out of every meeting with our clients, I mean, we usually are taking more of the action items. Yep. But there are action items on both sides of the table. And for us to constructively work together, people need to kind of follow through on the commitments that they make. So
absolutely.
All right. So what we've done thus far is we've looked at kind of these 7 things that you can really focus on to make your existing relationships even better. And we kind of thought about them in kind of a layered fashion, going from, focus on partnership and strategy, all the way up to, how do you emotionally behave with people who are in a partnership with you? Sometimes it might not work out. And we promised we weren't going to make this webinar all about, how to go shop for IT services, but really at the end of the day, sometimes you might just conclude, I don't have a partnership. This is a transactional vendor relationship and I need a partnership. And you decide you want to change gears. So the reality is that can be a stressful process in and of itself. And what we want to do is give you a couple pointers on how to make it so it's a highly successful process. When we're working with prospective clients, our singular mission is to make sure that everybody we talk to finds a solution to their challenge and finds the right partnership. It may be us, we hope it's us in most cases, But if it's not us, we're going to hopefully help you with a process that helps you find that right partnership. And so, all right, so the very first one is kind of goes back to that whole kind of transparency topic at the beginning. You really need to, if you're going to change gears, if you're going to change providers, revisit all of the documentation around your relationship and understand them. We can't tell you, I mean, we shared, I think Michael shared earlier that there have been times where we've signed up a new client and only to discover that maybe they had an agreement that auto renewed, and then you have to kind of sort through that whole challenge. Just dot your I's, cross your T's in this area. Really understand the timing of your agreements, understand what expectations are contractually written into the agreement in terms of adequate notification to the other party, and follow through to the T, really. And also understand if you've really been let down. I mean, sometimes clients will come to us and they have a provider that's charging them for cybersecurity measures that aren't being implemented. They are, providing terrible service. The response rates are terrible. Everybody is unhappy. In most cases, those are usually grounds for contractual breach if somebody is doing such a poor job that they're not doing the minimum of what the contract requires. And just know that is an option for prospective clients if you are in such a state where cybersecurity deficiencies are jeopardizing your business. If the support is so poor that it's causing you massive business disruptions, you have solid grounds for contractual breach, and you should pursue that because you deserve a true partnership, and you deserve really high quality service and support. But just really try to focus on the details here. Any other advice, Michael, on this one?
Not really. You pretty much touched on most of it, other than just what I mentioned earlier about setting yourself reminders when you have those contracts and you know that they're going to expire at a certain date. A lot of times that allows you to reevaluate and ensure that when you do a renewal, you know what the next term is going to be.
Now, another thing when you're shopping for a potential new partnership is it really pays big dividends to take stock of where you are. A lot of organizations come to us and they're switching because they're unhappy. They're switching because they feel like things have not been done correctly or done well, or they weren't in a true partnership. And the challenge is there's a lot of mystery of like why it wasn't working. And like they don't even know, like, we're like losing sleep. We're not sure we're protected. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to just go hire somebody new when you are having all those nagging worries, right? If you don't know the facts, if you don't really know whether you've been let down or things weren't done properly, you don't want to just go hire somebody. And so what we recommend and what we offer to prospective clients is what we call an IT discovery and cybersecurity risk assessment. It's not a sales job. It's a project you pay for. We put our top engineers on these projects, and they will come in and do a top to bottom inventory of your environment and a thorough gap analysis on your cybersecurity posture based upon the NIST cybersecurity framework, which is the gold standard for commercial organizations. And what you'll get out of that is you'll get a very thorough and professional point of view on where you stand today. Do you have hair on fire cybersecurity issues you didn't even know about? Or do you just need to go from good to great? We're going to tell you all of the above, and we're going to give you that IT roadmap and IT budget. If there's things that you haven't been investing in that you really need to get after, we're going to put that on a budget, and we're going to explain to you why it's necessary for your industry or for your business. There's other people out in the marketplace today who will kind of fire up some tools, run them in your environment for an hour, and then try to come back and give you a really professional piece of advice. That's not a true assessment. And if they're doing it for free, that's the big red flag, because it requires a true professional engineer to actually do this work. And so it's not expensive. It's a couple $1,000, but it gives you a really professional point of view on your current risk posture. And it allows you to become a much better shopper because you actually know what are the issues that we have as an organization and our IT and cybersecurity environment. Like, what do we need to get after? And once you know those, then you're in a much better position to hire a new IT outsourcing partner. Michael, any comments on that one?
Yeah, I would say, like Ted said, you're going to have a dime a dozen people are going to come in and say that they can do a free assessment. They're going to, like Ted said, they're going to send it to you the next day. If they're sending you something immediately after you sign a contract, they didn't do a thorough job. An example of a client recently, or an example of something that we saw in a client recently, we did an assessment on a client, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 months ago. We did all of our security scans, and we do those as well, but we review them, and then we also get into the environment and live and actually review various different pressure points that we see in clients' environments. We actually discovered that not only was the current MSP that was supporting them had an administrative account in their Active Directory, their previous company before that company also had an active account still in their environment, and the company before that also had an account. So they had 3 different MSP administrator accounts that were still active in their environment, one of which they had not done business with in over a decade. And so the point there is, you can't just run a scan and hand somebody a report and know exactly where the vulnerabilities are in an organization. If there was a tool like that that existed, you'd be able to, they'd make so much money and everybody would know about it. You really have to be intentional about getting in and actually reviewing the environment, not only from just a vulnerability standpoint, but also from a policy and procedure standpoint. A lot of the initial entry points of malicious actors are through social engineering, and it is actually caused by a human doing something incorrectly, and not the actual security protections in place. So you also need to be assessed from do you have the right policies? Are you doing the right training with your team so that they understand what to watch out for? And so there's a lot that goes into these assessments. And so don't shortchange your organization, because this can be one of the most valuable pieces of information you can have to know what direction to take your company in the future.
Fantastic. So if you've done an assessment and you feel like you've got a good partnership, that's going to be from your new provider, you've dotted your I's, you've crossed your T's, you've canceled your existing relationship in a proper sort of written legal fashion, you're ready to go to onboard your new IT partner. The planning doesn't stop. The planning continues, right? And you need to have a plan to transition. And sometimes when we win a new client, they have kind of sometimes unrealistic expectations about how this process goes, or it's not like flipping a switch. It's like you're basically, you have to plan for pretty much a 1-month overlap between your old provider and your new provider. That's just absolutely necessary. It's going to make everything go much more smoothly. Your current provider, the incumbent provider, will have tons of documentation and operational understanding of your environment that we need if you've selected us and we're going to be onboarding you, that we need all that information properly transferred to us, and we got to do it in a methodical fashion. And there's a lot of software tools that will get switched out from one provider to the next, and so you really need like a month-long period. You will have to pay 2 providers for 1 month. That's a small price to pay to have the whole thing go smoothly and go well. And it's another opportunity to just share expectations about what you're looking for. Like, what didn't you like in the old relationship you're coming out of, and what do you want to see? So Michael, any advice on, you're brand new with a new provider, how to communicate and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so there's a few things that I don't want to say always, that oftentimes surprise new customers when we go through an onboarding portion. One is, we do recommend the 1-month overlap. A lot of people want to do that break in the contract for one and then a start of the other. The 1 month really provides, like Ted said, that ability to have somebody to inquire about various access things that might not have been shared at that time. But it also gives us the ability to transition in a very controlled manner to ensure that it's not impacting your day-to-day operations too much. As far as getting engaged, I will say for the first couple months of an onboarding, especially taking over for a new provider, you're probably going to have to be more involved from a communication standpoint with both the current and the exiting provider. A lot of people are surprised by how involved they need to be. That's all in an effort to ensure that the transition is as smooth as possible. There's going to be information that is institutional to your organization that us knowing, going back to what we were talking about around being a partner, understanding your organization better. And so there's going to be a lot more inquiries at the beginning. And I will say that the clients that we've had struggles with in the past around this communication, it oftentimes takes a lot longer for us to get to a stable place on support because there's a lot of unknowns. So just anticipate a little bit of additional communications needed early in the relationship to ensure that we're all set up for success. Again, like Ted said, the being transparent about expectations, that's about the quickest degrader of a new partnership, is one side expecting one thing where the other expects another. So be vocal and be open about what your expectations are, and if they're not being met, be very clear about that, because oftentimes minor adjustments can make that better. And then also, like it mentions at the bottom, ensure that all your prior issues are documented. So ensure that if there are super lingering things from the other provider that you were just banging your head up against the wall and could not figure out why they could not get that fixed for you, be open and transparent early on in the relationship with the new provider so that they can prioritize those issues. Most likely they don't know that it needs to be a priority unless you let them know.
Fantastic. So what we've looked at today is we've looked at kind of 10 different topics. 7 of them are, hey, how do you raise your current IT outsourcing partnership to another level? And it's about communication, expectation setting, sharing, but also holding yourself accountable and being a true partnership in the partnership. And then we looked at 3 big ideas on, if you are going to make a change, where to focus your energies to get the highest return and have the best possible experience when you select a new partner. So that kind of brings us to the end of today's conversation. I'm not seeing any burning questions out there. So let me just say, if you've enjoyed today's content and you are in a position where you want to either have a conversation around your IT operations or cybersecurity or potentially your AI, you can go ahead and click that QR code on the left, and we'll have one of our experts meet with you one-on-one to understand your current needs. And then every month we do, several very informational webinars, and we're doing what's new with ChatGPT for Business next month on June 17th. So go ahead, if you're interested in registering for that, go ahead and click the QR code on the right. And if this is content you loved and you want to share it with a colleague or with your boss potentially, go ahead and go to our YouTube channel, and you can share it right from there with just a simple link. So Michael, thanks a lot for sharing, joining today and sharing all this wisdom.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope this information was very valuable to all of you guys. And obviously, like Ted said, if there's anything we can do for you, just let us know.
Okay. With that, thank you for joining this SnapTech IT webinar, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a future session. Take care, everybody.